I promise as soon as we're on the air.
Welcome to Truth and Life Today with Congregation Adat Ariel, Jewish believers in Jesus and teachers of spiritual warfare. If you'd like to speak with us tonight, call 618 924 1851. And now, here's the lovely and talented producer Deb.
Welcome to the Truth in Life broadcast, where we do our best each week to bring you a biblical perspective of the things we see going on around us and the headlines around the world in the same tradition established for this program by Rabbi Moshe Lori. I am producer Deb, sitting solo at the table tonight, but behind the microphone.
This is Jim. And once again, everyone, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to give us a call at 618 924 1851. And before we get started tonight, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Everybody sing. Happy birthday, producer Deb. Happy birthday to you. And many more.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, yes, it's my 63rd trip around the sun, and so that, I came into the world on a Tuesday, actually, slightly snowing, as my mom said, just little snowflakes out there. So, but yes, that's hard to believe. I was thinking today, I mean, we are in the 250th year. When I was 13 years old, we had the bicentennial, and I was within a million people down in downtown St. Louis. And so it was, yeah, my grandmother at the time said, "Well, we won't be here for the tricentennial," and so I if I would have to make it to 113 years old to make it to that. But it's just weird for me to think that 50 years later here. I mean, 50 years has gone by quickly. In that time is just going too fast. So anyway, but yeah, most of the people, I mean, everyone. I think it's just down to me and my kitty now, because all the people that were with me in St. Louis, they're no longer here. So. But that's what happens when you get to be 63 years old. A lot of people that you knew no longer here. Oh well.
Yep.
But they're with the Lord, and we'll see them again someday. So like when my mom passed, that's why said, I'll see you later, right?
And ladies and gentlemen, thanks to our IT guy, Chad, we are back on Rumble.
Yay!
After a hiatus from uh, me in my stint in my vacation in the hospital. And, we had a few issues with the Rumble channel, but looks like we're up and streaming right now. Thanks to Chad coming over and helping us out. Still
Yay.
sitting by the side here, making sure everything goes properly for a little while before he takes off. And
Yes.
yeah, we are extremely thankful to the Lord and for Chad.
Yay!
So,
He's behind the camera there. You can't see him, but he's here,
you know,
and we certainly do appreciate it. I wish I knew half of what he knows,
me too.
so it would be nice.
Yeah,
Maybe we wouldn't have to call him so often. But
that's right.
you did see everything he did, right?
No, I didn't.
You did not.
No, I
So
didn't. No.
so
He
we're in
just told me I
trouble
had to
again.
take this out and I had to put that in. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Well,
Okay.
yeah,
I don't
so
know. Maybe we've got 63 years on the planet, and I still have many, many things to learn.
yeah.
Many things I could learn. So, all righty. Well, we are going to dive in, I guess, tonight, eventually here, because all we're hearing right now on the news, or most of it, is the unfortunate saga with the Guthrie family. But there are mad dash things going on in negotiations around Iran. So we want to get into that tonight. And I have a few other things to talk about. I don't have any comments that I can't even begin to to understand what's going on in that Guthrie situation. I saw Paul Morrow, who was on Fox today, and he's got a big long pedigree background of being an investigator and all of that sort of stuff. And I don't think he's buying this whole thing with the with there being a ransom. You know. So that was what was interesting, because they're listing all the problems like that. There's a ransom note, but yet no way to contact them to make payment on the ransom.
Right.
So, uh, I hate to say it. I mean, a lot of times, I mean, this lady I was thinking is like, I mean, she's Samantha Guthrie's mother. Um, why would someone want to kidnap her? you know,
Right.
I mean, but so I said, well, are they going down? Is there somebody obsessed with Samantha Guthrie?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody, who's got an obsession with her. People on TV have that problem. They get somebody that's obsessed with them, and that this is what this person has done to try to get her attention, or is this a family problem? And
Right.
somebody has done a big cover up. We still don't even have the whole thing about John Benet Ramsey settled.
Nope. We don't. I mean,
And
there's a lot of scenarios. We were talking before the show about the elderly and getting duped by celebrities, and
right,
them emptying out bank accounts and sending them to overseas accounts, in some celebrity's name.
right.
And it could be that, it could be a lot of things. So
Whoever did this knew a lot of stuff. And I'm kind of leaning towards there's something going on in that family.
hmm
That's just my leaning. That's just my feeling. But we'll see. I could be entire. I mean,
well,
you
it's
know,
that's the usual suspect,
I know. It's just
unfortunately.
unfortunately because, like they said, kidnappings are extremely rare. If it had been, God forbid, somebody from Donald Trump's family, I could understand that. He's a billionaire, right? They want money, that kind of
Well, there
thing.
was a rumor going around that it was happening with Michael Jordan
Yeah.
with
Yep.
his two sons,
Right.
that they were planning his demise so they could get a hold of his fortune,
Right.
which is very, very sad.
Yeah.
As as much as Michael has done for those kids, I mean, uh,
Wow.
he got them tryouts and scholarships to universities. I know one went to the University of Illinois around here,
Hmm.
and I forgot where the other one went. But I mean, it's just I just don't get it. Are you that obsessed? I mean, I know they went to casinos and ran up a bill, but you got to figure this stuff out. You
Right.
can't, if you don't have the money, you can't have the same
Right.
same habits that your dad does, who does
Right.
have money.
Right.
You
Right.
know, it's just
Sometimes they
uh,
don't understand that,
it's
but
a crazy world.
right.
People are nuts.
Yep, it is. So, prayers to that lady and her family that this resolves quicker than and that she's returned safe and sound. But
Yeah.
that's all we can do. But that's all I have to say about that. I um I was going to say that I was watching the CBS Sunday Morning Show, and normally that's about 85% Trump derangement syndrome stories, because they used to have just like stories, nice stories about things that you would maybe never see or get to see, but they took you there to see it, or it's just like it's news and things being brought to you, but there was very little political bias to it. That's what made it kind of nice. My mom loved watching the CBS Sunday Morning Show. Now it's just like if Ted Koppel gets on there, oh boy, you know what's coming. But there was a lady on there that I watched it last Sunday morning, and she's I didn't catch her name. I just was kind of hearing this story, kind of doing something else, listening, and she was a lawyer, evidently quite successful as a lawyer. And then I don't know if she got married or that she got wealthy and her husband started taking over the money and investments and all of those sorts of things. And to make a long story short, they evidently he was able to lose everything that they had. And so she had to declare bankruptcy, but she has become like a social media star. So she's got a huge amount of wealth back. And she was talking one I guess she's a self-help guru is what she's like somebody's mom who's giving you, advice from what, she's come across in her life, which is great. And she was talking about not, you can't control others. You can't micromanage them. You've got to let it's like it brought up in my mind the verse that Yeshua talks about why to when he was talking to the religious leaders, why are you dealing with the speck in your brother's eye when you haven't pulled the plank out in your own? But what hit me is like there are thousands of people online going to this woman and all more power to her. She's making money. But it's like if you just stuck with the Bible, you would probably find much better answers.
Right.
She's lovely. She's giving good advice, but we've gotten so far away from biblical principles that it was coming up in my mind about that because like I said, she's probably a very great lady, but she's probably got flaws and things that the Lord is there to he's the one that made us so he probably has a better answer for things. And that led me to thinking about people it's like if you're a Christian out there and you've never read the Bible through, it's like, what's your excuse?
Right.
Because and it's like, well, I've heard a lot of people like, I just don't understand it. There's a lot I don't understand about it. It's like, uh, first of all, we've got Bible apps now. So if you're having trouble with the King James version and it's not making sense to you, you can get a Bible app. You don't even have to buy multiple versions of Bibles. And I like to buy Bibles. I like to physically hold them. I'm reading through the Message Bible now.
Sure.
I
Yep.
bought that, like to read through it every day. But don't have to do that. You can get online. And if you're reading through a version of the Bible and it's just not making sense, you can just click right on in over there and you can get plenty of translations of different translations to help you understand verses. And a lot of those apps have reading schedules. So it
Hmm.
can help you every day. You can read through it. And so if you're going the reason I'm saying this is and I talked about this a couple weeks ago. Like I said, this lady who's a self-help person or any person that you're going to for self it's great. It's great, but they may be just a little bit off. We talked about, if you get in an airplane and you set your, coordinates, and if you get just a little off those coordinates before long, before you know it, you can be heading to an entirely different country than you wanted to go to,
Yeah.
right?
Are you leaning towards Yeshua or
Hmm.
Cleo, the Jamaican psychic?
Right. And
You know.
so and so this and I was also thinking here it's like people who I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. People who were good at picking out counterfeit money, how they were trained. They're trained by never looking at counterfeit money.
Hmm.
They don't ever touch a piece of counterfeit money. A person who gets really good at recognizing counterfeit money, they only study the genuine article. They only study the perfect example. They feel it. They know what the weight of the paper is. They know every speck of the design of it. They know how it's made, everything. So when you try to pass something phony in front of them, they recognize it instantly.
Hmm.
So that's what I was encouraging people. Why waste your time? Study the genuine. Study Yeshua. Study him. He's perfect.
Yep.
He's the genuine article. Don't bother with, lookalikes. And it's going to become more and more and more important as we go into because this end time deception is growing. And I have this people who are calling themselves Christian and believers and all are getting off. I have this is from Zola Levitt Ministries, the bearded Bible brothers, and they're mentioning Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson. Candace Owens is she says she is Catholic. Tucker Carlson, I don't remember what he said he is, but I know he's admitted, well, I don't know much about the Bible. It's like, well, what's your excuse, Tucker?
Yeah.
Because it says here that uh, well, they mention here Candace Owens. They say once a rising conservative voice who worked with Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA and Ben Shapiro's The Daily Wire. Now she leads attacks against Israel. Owens blames Jews for Hamas's destruction in Gaza and promotes books like Der Talmud Juden from 1871, which falsely claims that Jewish people instigated the black slave trade. So this is where she's going in her off-course way. They say Tucker Carlson represents another subversive shift among conservatives. His about-face against Israel has even liberals confused. Carlson, who openly declares ties with terrorist-funding governments like Qatar, insists that radical Islam isn't a threat to Americans. Instead, he claims that the true threat is an Israeli psychological operations or PSYOPs campaign creating Islamophobia among Westerners.
Okay.
So that's his current.
Tucker Carlson is Episcopalian.
That's it.
So, yeah, it's.
And so even the very elect are getting swayed here in this end time. And so we, like I said, we're going to have to know the genuine to avoid this counterfeit that's going on, because the very elect are being swayed.
Yep. And as AI gets better, and right now you look at a AI video and you can tell by how their mouth is moving whether it's AI or not.
Yeah.
As that gets cleaned up, it's going to be it's going to get harder and harder to determine.
They were concerned, even like I'm mentioning the Guthrie case, that they said, we'd like to communicate, we're ready to communicate, but we have to have guarantees. And their concern is AI.
Oh, sure.
That they said there was enough video and audio online of Samantha Guthrie's mother that you could generate AI.
Oh, sure.
You could make it sound like she is calling or something,
Yeah.
So
do FaceTime and I'm okay. I'm alive, and pay the ransom, and then you find out she's in a, it's that's not the case, unfortunately. So
right.
It's gonna get worse before it gets a lot better. That's for sure.
Yeah. So like I said, just my advice: that you should get in there and study what you want to study, need to study about the word, because it's going to get increasingly more difficult. One of the other things that's coming up is talking about. I hadn't had a chance to look into it, but there's the specifics of it. There's a group of Muslims now that's saying they love Jesus, right? But what they're saying is they're not talking about Yeshua from the Bible. They're talking about the Muslim writings of Yeshua, and what they're saying is, yes, they love Jesus, because what has going to happen is Jesus is going to come back and do away with all of the Christians and the Jews for not following Allah.
And if you believe that one, I'll tell you another.
Yeah. So that's what they've got T-shirts that says, "I'm a Muslim and I love Jesus."
Yeah.
So that's the next thing that's come along. And also, there's a huge push. Of course, we know where possibly they're getting the money. Muslims are buying up churches that are being sold, and turning them into mosques. So not only have they built over 43 mosques around in the Dallas Fort Worth area in the past couple of years, they're now going across the country and buying up churches and converting them to mosques. So coming to a neighborhood near you. And we have talked about this. Yes, it's the United States, freedom of religion. But unfortunately, this radical Islam they're not necessarily a religion. They are interested in conquest. And if you go to any of their countries, they're not going to give you the same consideration. There is no separation of mosque and state. And if you do not bow, then you have to pay a tax to them. But eventually, like what's happening in Syria right now and Nigeria and places, the Muslims are massacring Christians,
Right.
just massacring. So, and Americans are saying, "Well, this could never happen here." They've got their plan. Muslim Brotherhood has their plan, and they say they're 50 years along in their 100-year plan to make the United States a completely Muslim nation. And of course, we keep reminding everyone that what they're doing is they're not going to run planes and buildings anymore. They're going to get into the government. They're going to try to get into like Zoran Mamdani, head of New York.
Right.
And he wants, as long as he's mayor there, I'm sure that if somebody wants to set up a Sharia compliant zone, then they'll have much more ease and ability to do that.
And what they're trying to dupe people into by saying that they love Yeshua is to say, hey, it's all one God. Allah and the
Yeah.
God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are the same.
Hmm.
Well, in John chapter 4, verse 8, and First John chapter 4, verse 16, it talks about God being love.
Hmm.
Okay. If you look in the Quran, ladies and gentlemen, there is one word that is not in the Quran, and that word is love.
Right.
If somebody tells you that Allah and the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are the same, it is bunk.
Right.
It
Nope.
is bull.
Right. And we've talked about it. I brought it in before. What's his name's book? I've just for William Federer. I was trying to say it. William Federer. That book, boy, that they've sold through Flashpoint. They've sold thousands of copies, and so they're talking about, if you want to understand, William Federer has a book, What Every American Should Know About Islam, and so if you can get a hold of that, and make sure that you get a good idea of what's going on in in this in this age of deception. Like I said, unfortunately, we are not worshiping the same God. Unfortunately. Well, we need to get into, I guess, here, switch over and get into our stuff about the Middle East. Um, but before I do that, interesting, the Washington Post. They've talked about today, they had about a third of their personnel laid off of the Washington Post staff. And they made the announcement that all their Middle East staff is gone of the Washington Post because, well, their Middle East staff was anti-Israel. They had an anti-Israel bias. So bad things happening at the Washington Post for the people who work there. A third of them are gone. It'll be interesting to see what they do with that, if they can even keep that publication going. But we need to, I guess, jump in here to all of these things have been going on today, and I'm going to have to bounce back and forth here with because things actually are changing and probably have changed since I have produced the program. Um, because so I'm going to actually have to line up some of Amir Sarfati's instantaneous things that he's been putting online here just to keep up with everything that's going on. But it says Saudi Arabia's shift from supporting UAE to Qatar could spell trouble for Israel, warns a former U.S. official. Though it once seemed inevitable that Saudi Arabia would soon sign the Abraham Accords, recent rhetoric against Israel and the United Arab Emirates coming out of the kingdom now signals otherwise. Recent Saudi rhetoric suggests Riyadh prefers partnership with Hamas over Israel. Former Pentagon official Dr. Michael Rubin surmised, certainly the messages coming out of Saudi Arabia are disheartening for those hoping for peace. As Saudi connections with the UAE weakened, and then seemed to break down over their policies in Yemen last December, Rubin opined that although Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is willing to drive the Muslim Brotherhood out of his own country, he supports and even depends on it in others. Riyadh's policy in Yemen relies um, internally on Yemen's Muslim Brotherhood affiliated Al Islah Party, which is part of the central government that has Saudi support, even though inside Saudi Arabia, the Muslim Brotherhood is designated as terrorists, he explained. Rubin describes the Saudi pivot away from punishing Qatar for empowering the Muslim Brotherhood towards friendship with the Turkey Qatar bloc as creating a new axis of Akhwan or brotherhood. The new anti UAE and anti Israel alliance seeks to contain, if not roll back, the Abraham Accords, according to Rubin. So are we actually getting into a situation where we're setting up more towards Ezekiel 38 and 39?
Hmm.
We'll see. Saudi state media has taken a distinctly anti Israel stance recently, according to an analysis piece in the Wall Street Journal, which represents a plethora of examples. Wherever Israel is present, there is ruin and destruction. And an editorial in the Riyadh Daily claimed last month, "Oh God, deal with the Jews who have seized the occupied, for they cannot escape your power," declared Sheikh Salah bin Humed, an imam at the Grand Mosque in Mecca. In a recent sermon, Arab News, other Saudi outlet that has been relatively moderate on the Jewish state in recent years, strongly criticized Israel last week, saying, Israeli incursions, settlement expansions, arrests, and military raids across the occupied territories have systematically eroded trust in diplomacy. Uh, or does it say? Yeah, diplomacy. No political process can survive when one side experiences daily dispossession while the other enjoys impunity. And it goes on and on and on here. It says here ADL is alarmed by the increasing frequency and volume of prominent Saudi voices, analysts, journalists, and preachers using openly anti Semitic dog whistles and aggressively pushing anti Abraham Accord rhetoric, often while peddling conspiracy theories about Zionist plots. And that's coming out of the Abu Dhabi, something out of Abu Dhabi. So, however, it says here that, and I don't want to get into a whole lot of details. However, according to many analysts, the flipped script is not just about anti Israel sentiment. Clashes over trading opportunities and regional influence led Saudi Arabia to be at odds with the UAE. A key player in the Abraham Accords. The two Gulf states are backing opposite sides in the conflicts in Yemen and Sudan while vying for dominance over Red Sea trade routes. According to reports from the European Council on Foreign Relations, Saudi Arabia has the opportunity to exploit the deeper anger felt towards Israel around the Middle East in order to gain influence and isolate the UAE. So, the only thing that unites them, all of them, ultimately is their hatred towards Israel. Otherwise, they're constantly infighting like this. Constantly. So Saudi doesn't like the UAE.
Yep.
Saudi officials denied that the hostile rhetoric against Israel was coordinated with the government, but as Daniel Shapiro, a former U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for the Middle East, told the Wall Street Journal, it does raise a question of whether MBS is committed to the path of modernization both Trump and Biden have invested in. Memory, that's and I don't remember what the acronym, but it's the MEMRI is an acronym. They monitor all of these things in the Middle East and can translate it. So
Mm-hmm.
reported that in addition to anti-Israel incitement, Saudi Arabia is also now expressing harsh criticism of the Abraham Accords and that it is framing them as serving Israel at the expense of Arab stability and even as religious capitulation rather than a political move.
Mm-hmm.
Yet simultaneously, Saudi officials recently indicated that they remained open to normalization under certain conditions during a visit to Washington last week. Mark Dubowitz, who participated in a meeting with bin Salman's brother and Saudi Defense Minister Khalid bin Salman, said Saudi officials were aware that recent rhetoric was straining relations with the U.S. The Saudis understood that this was creating serious problems for them in Washington, he said, and confirmed that Saudi officials had committed to easing tensions with Saudi Arabia. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned at a press briefing last week, we expect from anybody who wants normalization or peace with us that they not participate in efforts directed by forces or ideologies that want the opposite of peace.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so and this was brought out by Joe Elizabeth, and she is She has a master's in Jewish philosophy from Haifa University, and she loves to write about the Bible. And this was coming out of, I don't know where it was coming out of it. I think it was from the Jewish News Syndicate. So is where that came from. So a little bit of what's going on there. But again, like I said, I wanted to try to get into Israel here
Well,
and Iran.
you notice that the Middle Eastern countries are having the same problems that whenever you get a group of countries together, you've got all these different opinions and
Yep.
even the UN.
Right.
And that's why the UN has lost its credibility in the world.
Right.
And I mean, BRICS couldn't get its act together because they couldn't agree on anything. And that was the saving grace on October 7th, was that Hezbollah, Hamas, and Iran, they couldn't get their act together either,
Right.
because it could have been a lot worse than it was.
Right. Right. This is coming out of the Jerusalem Post. Israel estimates slim prospects for U.S.-Iran agreement in Oman talks. So that was one of the things I was going to say here, that I wanted to look up here in Amir. He had a graphic talking about the stack up of all of our military in the Middle East here. Yes, the American airlift to the Middle East continues nonstop in the past 24 hours. That's why I'm kind of centering on this. It says here 10 American C 17A transport planes flew in recent hours between U.S. bases in Germany and U.S. bases in the Middle East. This is definitely an unusual amount in such a short time frame. Since January 18th until yesterday, there have been 84 flights of this type of American transport planes in the Middle East, in addition to 5 flights of the heavy and strategic transport planes, the C-5M. So that's coming out. They have maps here and everything on that. And it says here, I had to look up this one gentleman here. He says the conclusion reached by the Green Prince Mossab Hassan Youssef after comparing the U.S. led invasion of Iraq in 2003 with a hypothetical military action against Iran today. And he has these bullet points. Direct military regime change is beyond the capacity of today's superpowers. Such an attempt would almost certainly end in a catastrophic failure. The realistic alternative: abandon fantasies of quick intervention, intensify targeted sanctions, freeze overseas assets of regime elites, impose strict oil export embargoes, apply sustained economic and informational pressure to financially suffocate the IRGC. And then he says, let internal forces do the work: economic collapse, water scarcity, growing popular discontent. Well, that's what's been going on, right?
Yep.
Over time, these pressures can erode the regime from within, giving the Iranian people space to bring change on their own terms while avoiding a power vacuum, civil war, or regional explosion. Now, this is what he's talking about. This is the message President Trump is hearing from many of his advisors. As I have said all along, the Ayatollah regime is not disappearing anytime soon. Its end will not come through the strength of a mighty military, but through the supernatural power of the God of Israel. That outcome belongs to Ezekiel's prophetic account of the next war.
Yep.
And I said, who is this guy? And so I looked him up. He's called Mossad Hassan Youssef. He's known as the Green Prince, I guess. Is an American author and former militant who defected to Israel in 1997, thereafter working as an Israeli spy for the Shin Bet until he moved to the United States in 2007. His father is Hassan Youssef, the co-founder of the Palestinian Islamic organization Hamas.
Yep.
A new New York Times bestselling author, he is known for his outspoken criticisms of Hamas, the pro-Palestinian movement, and Islam's treatment of non-Muslims. The Shin Bet considered Youssef to be Israel's most valuable source within the Hamas leadership. The information he supplied allowed Israel to successfully thwart dozens of Palestinian suicide attacks against civilians and prevent the assassinations of many Israeli civilians and soldiers, expose numerous Hamas cells, and assisted Israeli authorities in hunting down Palestinian militants. His efforts also culminated in the incarceration of his father, who had served as a leading figure for Hamas operations from the West Bank. In March 2010, Yusuf published his autobiography titled Son of Hamas. In 1999, Yusuf converted from Islam to Christianity, being formally baptized in 2004, but did not disclose this fact to the public until 2008 due to fears that his family members in Ramallah would become targets for religious persecution by Islamic groups. In 2007, he left the West Bank and moved to the United States, where he applied for political asylum and had his request granted by American authorities in 2010. Following Shin Bet handler Gonen Ben Itzhak testifying on his behalf, Yusuf has compared Islam to Nazism. He has also zero respect for anyone who identifies as Muslim and accused Muslims of using power as a device against Israel. Palestinian students and community leaders at university campuses have accused him of Islamophobia, and his speeches have attracted protests both in the support of and the opposition to his controversial views. And then, of course, it goes into everything about him, of his family, his defection to Israel, his espionage of work that he's done, and his political asylum in the United States, his conversion to Christianity, and loss of faith in Islam. And so that's it's really an interesting fellow there. And you know, that's he's found the way. He has he um you know, he's faced a little bit of criticism there, but at least he's on the right track. So anyway, he was the one that was weighing in on that, and comments about on actually the line here with Amir Tsarfati. Um it also, Amir was saying that the IRCG has seized 2 oil tankers in the Persian Gulf. Um and that the IRCG General Hossein Daghi, I guess, Dagigi, I maybe. Our main goal is to drive America out of the region. If the U.S. attacks Iran, we will strike Israel first and target all the American bases. You know, so that's their big thing. If something happens, they want to target Israel. It's their excuse. Netanyahu to the parliamentarians, foreign affairs and security committee members about Iran: if they attack us, we will respond with a force never seen before. And then he actually has video footage on here of CENTCOM. They published footage from the USS Abraham Lincoln carrier showing all of the flights going off of the main deck there. But again, with all of this buildup there, we have our ships over there, we have all of this going on. You know that President Trump doesn't want to go to war, and he's a negotiator. So while all this was going on, negotiations were going on today. So Israeli officials estimated on Thursday that it is unlikely that that Iran and the U.S. will reach an agreement during the slated talks between senior officials in Oman on Friday or tomorrow, which is probably already Friday there right now. So I have no idea when that's going to start. And Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi is set to meet with U.S. President Donald Trump's envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner in Muscat. Iran is talking to us because it doesn't want us to attack them, Trump said on Thursday. According to Al Jazeera, the U.S. is demanding that Iran dismantle its nuclear program, reduce the range of its ballistic missiles so they cannot reach Israel. Oh my. And grant a kind of amnesty to those arrested during the 12-day war and the recent protests. It added that if is anybody left? These people have been murdered.
Right.
It added that America was also requesting that the Islamic Republic reduce oil exports to China and strike an agreement that will end the current hostility between Iran and America. President Trump had like a 2-hour conversation with Xi on the phone yesterday.
Mm.
So I'm sure they were talking about all this because he's trying to make China buy more stuff from us.
Right.
And, maybe that would even include oil. I don't know. But further, the report claimed Qatar, Turkey, and Egypt proposed a framework agreement under which Iran would leave uranium enrichment at a 3% level and later be allowed to enrich it to a 1.5% level overall. As for the 400 kilograms of uranium enriched to 60%, this stockpile would be transferred to a third country. In addition, Iran will need to agree not to export weapons and technology to proxy groups and commit to refraining from using its ballistic missiles. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance said in an interview that Trump will try to achieve whatever he can through non military means, but if he feels that the military option is the only one left, he will choose that.
Yep.
So we've kind of shifted off of Iran killing civilians back to this nuclear program.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like I said, it's been tricky business because this is not like what happened in Venezuela, which another official in Venezuela has been arrested and will be brought to the United States. But that happened today as well. But
Mm-hmm.
this is more complicated. So you can't just rush right on in there, unfortunately, for those poor people who have stood up and tried to protest, unless they themselves have some sort of military that can fight back. It's, protesting in the streets not really going to do much to change the regime over there. They're hell bent on what they're doing.
Right.
They're going to stay in power. They want to make nukes, and and they're bringing in, like I said, to kill people when they couldn't get the IRCG members to do what they wanted. They brought in mercenaries.
Right.
So, one of the main issues where gaps remain between the U.S. and Iran is what the talks will actually cover. The Iranians insist, at least publicly, on discussing only the nuclear issue, while the U.S. administration is determined to negotiate on other matters as well. I think the room for flexibility exists only on the nuclear issue, said Dr. Raz Zimt, the director of the Iran and the Shiite Axis Research Program at the Institute for National Security Studies. I see no room for flexibility on the proxy issue or on ballistic missiles. At most, the Iranians might say, let's reach an agreement on the nuclear issue, and if that succeeds, then we'll talk about other issues in the next stage. Yeah, see, that's the problem. They sit there and they dictate.
Right.
It's like we don't seem like we're sitting there as dictating to them.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, okay, we're going to negotiate. And then they dictate to us, well, we're not going to negotiate this and we're not going to negotiate that. So we're going to tell you what we're going to negotiate. And it's like,
It's all a stalling tactic. They're
yes,
they're
right,
they're just wanting another presidential change.
right,
And it's like, let's just see how far we can string this out.
right.
And the quicker that, the Trump administration, figures that out and decides to take action, and I know he doesn't want war. I know it's not good economically,
No.
but it's necessary in this instance.
I think it's going to come down to the fact that probably what's going to happen is we're going to do some sort of strategic strikes.
Oh, sure.
I think that's what's going to happen to bring them back to the table to negotiate.
Mm-hmm.
Because unfortunately, I mean, if you look at Bible prophecy, and we always have to bring it back around to that, nowhere do I see in Bible prophecy that a government with a different ideology is the one that gets involved in the Ezekiel 38 and 39 war.
Right.
Iran seems to be Persia, as it is referred to, seems to be the lead in all of that mess. And so, unfortunately, for the poor people in Iran, I would say that the people who are there, if you want to take in refugees, I mean, everyone who's there, if you want to make a deal, say everyone that does not want to be under the headship of that regime, that we should take them out.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They should, and it's like, okay, Iran, here's the deal. You can't do this with your nukes. But the other thing is, you got to, all the people who want to flee and get out of there, you've got to let them out.
Right.
all the people who do not want to be under your repressive regime.
Right.
And that's, I think, the only way to help those people. I don't know who all would leave, but then you would have a concentration of just those Ayatollahs and their IRGC, uh, you know, people that follow that, and maybe help the people who are desperate to get out of there. I have no it, but it doesn't look like there's going to be this great democratic government, unfortunately, come in and sweep away the Ayatollahs and that garbage. I don't see it.
Well, it was like you were saying, you've been saying in past weeks, the Saudis don't want that.
Nope.
And I know the Egyptians don't want that.
Mm-mm.
And it's kind of like the Arab Spring, where everybody was being retaken by
Right.
hardline Muslim
Right.
regimes. They don't want a democrat. They don't want a what they would call probably a Democrat spring or a
They don't
democratic
want a
spring.
democratic Islamic nation
Right. And
because it makes them look terrible.
right. And because everybody would want one.
Right.
You're right. So if I'm like you, if I think Trump's, and I think he's really capitulating to the Saudis because of the Abraham Accords.
Right.
So
I've got another. It says here, meanwhile, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has had a meeting with the Knesset Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee. I have an article on that. So we'll move on to that. But it's just in a very, very terrible situation here with that. Gosh darn it, I dropped it. I dropped where I was.
uh-oh.
Anyway, on a mirror. So anyway, he what is he and he's oh gosh, it says what you know, he's got a thing here posted by we were talking about Tucker Carlson. What appears to me as demon possessed Tucker Carlson continues to spread lies about Israel.
Yeah.
Senator Ted Cruz just wrote this Qatari spokesman Tucker Carlson is lying about Israel again.
I love Ted.
He says there are fewer Christians now, far fewer in absolute numbers and particularly as percentage of the population. The Christian population in Israel has grown from fewer than 40,000 in 1948 to over 180,000 in 2025. That is an increase of 350%. He said, math is hard, you know? So now Ted Cruz is saying that Tucker Carlson is the Qatari spokesperson. How much money have they, Tucker to buy his loyalty over there in Qatar? Wow. He has sold his soul.
Yeah.
Goodness. Then he has posted here urgent the United States has just issued a security alert regarding Iran and is urging all its citizens to leave the country immediately. So who in the world from the United States is still in Iran?
Well,
Oh,
in the immortal words of Louisiana Senator John Kennedy, you've done nothing when you've bested a fool.
you're right. Yeah, that's true. That man, he is they're going to have to, how they wrote the book about Yogi Berra and the
They have to do
Yogiism?
that.
There's going to have to be a book just on Senator Kennedy's whatever you want to call his things. He's amazing.
Yes, he is.
Anyway, yeah, so and they say a short while ago, in response to a ceasefire violation yesterday in which Hamas terrorists fired at IDF forces, the IDF carried out a precise strike on a terrorist structure in Khan Yunis in the Gaza Strip. That's going on as well. And of course, I've got video here of big booms going off. Kaboom. So anyway, this is like I said, I've got all kinds of stuff here. A new footage from a morgue in Iran's second largest city, Mashhad, shows that the Islamic regime's mass murder of anti regime protesters wasn't just limited to Tehran. Just like in Tehran morgues, long rows of murdered protesters can be seen. And that's from Visegrad 24. So, yeah, it's horrendous over there. Horrible things are going on, from what I understand, in Nigeria. Yes, it says here Islamists just murdered more than 170 people in the Kwara state of Nigeria for refusing Sharia law. The jihadis invaded a community near the border with Nigeria, demanded that all the villagers must embrace Sharia law. When they refused, the mass murder started. Residents were rounded up with their hands bound behind their backs before being shot and executed. That's according to local lawmaker Sadu Baba Ahmed. And they've got the horrible pictures to back that up right there. So again, that's going on. Nigeria, where else? So, Somalia, all different kinds of places. I can't remember which, all of the countries over there where all of this horrendous stuff is going on. It's all over.
Mhm.
But anyway, so I said that Netanyahu was convening his security cabinet over this Iranian crisis. Um, and he did that Thursday afternoon to discuss the deepening Iran crisis as nuclear talks between Washington and Tehran appear to be back on for Friday. The meeting in Jerusalem was scheduled for 4 p.m. their time. Meanwhile, Trump had said Khomeini should be very worried. It says U.S. President Donald Trump said on Wednesday that the Iran's supreme leader Ali Khomeini should be very worried when asked by NBC News nightly news anchor Tom Lamas in an exclusive pre-Super Bowl interview. I guess the Super Bowl is this weekend, whether the clerical ruler has reason to be concerned. As you know, they're negotiating with us, Trump continued. Lamas then pressed the president on his commitment to help the Iranian protesters. We've had their back, and look, the country's a mess right now because of us. We went in, we wiped out their nuclear sites. So if I didn't take out, we want peace in the Middle East. If I didn't take out these nuclear sites, think of it. If we didn't take out their nuclear sites, we wouldn't have had peace in the Middle East because the Arab countries could have never done that. The president said they were very, very afraid of Iran. They're not afraid of Iran anymore. He said that the American bombing operation in June obliterated the targets, asserting that the regime in Tehran was going to have a nuclear weapon within 1 month, and they're not going to have it anymore. If the Islamic Republic restarts its nuclear weapons program, Trump vowed to send U.S. bombers right back and do their job again. The Iranians tried to go back to the site. They weren't even able to get near it. It was total obliteration, but they were thinking about starting a new site in a different part of the country. We found out about it. You do that, we're going to do things to you, Trump said.
Hmm.
Trump is scheduled to make an announcement at 7 p.m. Washington time Thursday in the South Court Auditorium at the White House, according to official public schedule, with coverage by the White House press pool. I don't know if he's done that. I know he did a big press thing tonight about how uh, the drug companies have to lower the prices for the drugs in this country.
Mhm.
They said that we consume like 13% of all the drugs. I mean, it's a very small percentage, but we pay 75% of the cost of all drugs. So
Oh,
we're
I'm
paying
sure.
for drugs for the world. So I don't know if he's actually done this. I don't know if you can find out if he's made any kind of announcement about Iran at all on any sort of press conference tonight.
Yeah, I
Uh,
can.
U.S. Iran nuclear talks set for Friday are back on after several Middle Eastern leaders urged the Trump administration not to walk away from the meeting. Two American officials told Axios this on Wednesday. The talks are now scheduled to take place in Muscat, Oman, at Iran's request after Washington initially resisted Tehran's push to shift the venue from Istanbul and change the format to bilateral talks focused solely on the nuclear file. So they've stepped in, Iran stepped in and totally taken control of everything here. I really don't think I like the looks of that. Regional leaders warned that canceling talks could increase the risk that Trump would pivot to military action, and at least 9 countries in the region appealed directly to the White House. According to Axios, Trump has positioned U.S. naval and other assets in the Middle East region amid the escalating tensions with Iran. This, of course, is according to the Jewish News Syndicate article. In Tehran, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps General Hossein Dagigi sharpened the regime's rhetoric, saying on Hezbollah affiliated Al Mayadeen TV Boy, these names really give your mouth a workout. On Wednesday, that Iran's main goal is to drive America out of all countries of the region, according to a translation by the Washington based Middle East Media Research Institute. There's the acronym for memory: Middle East Media Research Institute. That's a top-notch organization. The former top advisor to the IRGC commander in chief warned that if the U.S. attacks Iran, our first target would be the Zionist entity, referring to Israel, along with American bases across the Middle East. He added that Washington has returned to negotiations out of fear of the Iranian people's capabilities. Really? You people were the ones begging us for meetings.
Hmm.
One U.S. official said Arab partners asked Washington to keep the meeting and listen to what the Iranians have to say, while another said the administration agreed to proceed to be respectful to its allies and to keep pursuing diplomacy. Under the original plan, the United States and Iran were to meet in Istanbul with other Middle Eastern countries participating as observers and addressing broader issues such as the regime's ballistic missile program, support for regional terrorist proxy groups, and human rights violations following the regime's deadly crackdown on nationwide protest. And that's what should have been held to, I think. For now, only discrete, or no, I mean, I'm sorry, for now, only direct U.S. Iran talks on nuclear issues are planned in Oman. This is according to Axios. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said on X that the talks were scheduled to be held in Muscat around 10 a.m. Friday, and thanked Oman for hosting the session. White House Middle East Special Envoy Steve Witkoff met on Tuesday in in Israel with Netanyahu and senior defense officials to coordinate positions ahead of the talks. The Israeli officials told Axios Netanyahu stressed that Iran cannot be trusted and shared updated intelligence on its activities. Witkoff and Trump advisor Jared Kushner are expected to travel to Qatar on Thursday for consultations on Iran before heading to Oman for the meeting with the Iranian officials. Again, it seems like Iran's kind of got this in their court now. They've kind of put they've got control of this. Disappointing.
Hmm.
Despite the decision to go ahead with the talks, U.S. officials quoted by Axios said they remain skeptical a breakthrough is possible, citing Tehran's recent behavior and the lack of progress in previous rounds. We are not naive about the Iranians, one official said, adding that Washington would engage in a real conversation if possible, but was not prepared to waste our time. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance said on Wednesday that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, telling American journalist Megyn Kelly on her Epidemius news and political podcast and radio program that this is the president's stated policy goal. Trump will keep his opinions open and talk to everybody, according to Vance. He's going to try to accomplish what he can through non-military means, and if he feels like the military is the only option, then he's ultimately going to choose that option. The vice president addressed concerns about previous American adventures in the Middle East, particularly the quagmire of the Iraq War, aka the 2003 11 or Second Gulf War, stressing, I don't know what that's weird how that's marked, stressing that we know the history and the president has no interest in repeating the history of Iraq. What he does want to make sure is there is a totally separate issue, which is you don't let crazy people get nuclear weapons and then lead to a nuclear arms race all over the world.
Exactly right.
So that's what's going on that.
You were asking a while ago what African countries were killing Jews and Christians. Nigeria, the Congo,
Mm,
Mozambique, Somalia, the Central African Republic,
right.
and then Sudan and Egypt.
Man, yep, that's them.
If
And
it's,
I was asking if Trump made any kind of statement tonight about Iran.
I do not see a
I
statement
don't
as of yet.
I don't think he did. I have Amir Tsarfati's newsletter here. I'm going to get into. One of the things, though, is I want to talk about, and I haven't had a chance to go back and check Avi Abelo. I'm going to try to get a little bit more information about it. We've talked about it in the past, but we know that, the parallels between the United States and Israel. And we talked about that with Netanyahu and Trump and how Trump went through all of his all of the things that he had with all of those phony court cases and all of the stuff being thrown at him, and Netanyahu has had the same, and going down this path. Well, it seems, and like I said, I read about it a little bit before here on the program, that behind the scenes in Israel, there is a group that they're in high positions all through the Israeli government, but they were doing all of these behind the scenes thing to try to make Netanyahu look bad, and so they could eventually topple Netanyahu and come in and take over. It's the same sort of thing like what they're trying to do to stop Trump with our liberal side. So anyway, but here's a story out of the all let me say it right, all Israel news. It says here Israel's High Court orders Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to justify keeping Ben Gvir as national security minister. So I'm going to read it, but how do we know what's going on here, really? Because this sort of stuff has been going on in Israel behind the scenes, and these people are trying to cover their behinds because a lot of the stuff that they've been doing behind the scenes has put people's lives in jeopardy. The High Court of Justice issued a conditional order on Wednesday requiring Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to explain why he has not removed National Security Minister Itamar Ben Gvir from his position, in accordance with the legal recommendation of Attorney General Gali Baharav Miara. Last month, Baharav Miara published a recommendation based on petitions calling for Ben Gvir's removal from his ministry position. In it, she wrote, a conditional order is required that will require the prime minister to explain why he is not removing the minister of national security, member of Knesset Ben Gvir, from his position. The minister is abusing his position and violating basic democratic principles. The dangers inherent in this situation are increasing as time goes by. It is possible that this is irreversible damage. To many in the coalition government, the situation where the attorney general, who is also legal advisor to the government, is asking the high court to order Netanyahu to dismiss Ben Gvir as an judicial reforms, which the coalition began initiating in 2023 before the October 7th Gaza war. Okay, it's going to get deep here. It's
Yep.
going to get complicated here.
Sure
Like I
is.
said, this behind the scenes meddling going on. They know that if they take anybody out of Netanyahu's coalition, that it's very fragile, and more than likely the government will fail, and it would send it to elections.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yep.
I think that's the goal with all of this because, like I said, they want to get rid of Netanyahu. Now, I believe they're going to elections this year. I think in the fall there will be. It's the time for elections to happen in Israel. But meddling is going on behind the scenes here with the judicial part of and the courts in Israel.
Right.
So, in announcing the conditional order, the High Court gave Netanyahu and Ben Gvir until March 10th to submit their responses, and it also noted that the composition of the panel hearing the case will be expanded to 9 judges. These two details of the order demonstrate the nature and the gravity of the case from the court's perspective. The calling of an expanded panel of 9 judges for the continuation of the hearing and a fixed deadline for Netanyahu to respond by March 10th demonstrate that the court is seeking a full explanation and takes the concerns expressed by Baharav Miara seriously. Now, we know they've talked about, I think we've from others, that these 9 judges are all opposing Netanyahu.
Sure.
They're all on the what we will label the liberal side.
Yep.
Okay, for lack of a better, politics in Israel is very complicated, but that's the only way I would. That Netanyahu, I don't say Republican, I say he's conservative, and these judges are all liberal.
Yep.
So, and they keep reappointing their buddies in that have the same viewpoints into this judicial system, and it's not voted on, so they can continue their liberal dominance. That's what they want to do, and that's what Biden wanted to do by expanding the Supreme Court to load it with liberals to constantly, so there would be no way that any conservative issues could could pass here in the United States.
Sure. He also wanted to make DC a state, wanted
Right,
to make Puerto Rico a state
right.
so that he could get more Democrat senators into Congress.
And if you've seen the maps online, it's because of the massive population loss from all these blue states. They're losing seats.
Right.
So that's why they're trying
They're trying to
everything they
redistrict it.
can
Yeah.
to redistrict. They're trying everything they can to keep illegals in the country. They're trying everything they can to have no IDs for elections so they can pad all of this stuff so they can. It's all, yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
it's all there, folks. Follow the patterns, right? Even
Hmm.
before the High Court issued the conditional order, and this is back to Israel now, the coalition government began preparing for this scenario and reportedly considering advancing an already proposed amendment to a basic law, and it's capitalized there, basic law, which would prohibit the High Court of Justice from interfering in a prime minister's decision regarding the appointment of ministers to a second and third reading in the parliament. The proposed amendment would repeal the so-called Deri Pinchasi or Pinchasi rule established by the High Court in 1993, in which the Israeli Supreme Court prohibited Shah's leader Ayel Deri from serving as an interior minister due to standard. The High Court struck down a law by the coalition's ability to use the reasonableness standard against the Knesset laws in early 2024. You see, this is the problem. There's nothing to break this. Of course, they don't want anything controlling them and what they can do. By law, a minister who is accused of crimes can still continue to serve in his position. The Deri Pinhazi ruling stated that the prime minister must exercise his discretion as to whether it is right not to dismiss a minister in such a case. But if the court finds that the discretion is unreasonable, it can overrule the prime minister and order the minister to be dismissed. The ruling was a landmark event in the Israeli political history and set the stage for the current legal battle over the court's authority and the balance of power inside the Israeli government. The proposed amendment is another attack on the reasonableness standard that the court granted itself. So the court here has granted itself ultimate power,
Sure.
basically.
Yeah.
Many in the coalition government argue that the fact that Baharav Miari is calling for Ben Gavir's dismissal, even though he has not even been indicted or become the subject of a criminal investigation, is proof that the judicial branch acquired too much power without a clear legal basis.
That's and you can't argue against that, can you?
You can't. The court order has the potential to provoke a so-called constitutional crisis. Oh, I think they've already got it.
Yeah.
As it again brings focus to the lack of legal specificity regarding the full authority of the various branches of the Israeli government. The court order and the deadline will likely lead to further conflict between the coalition government and the judicial branch. The order drew the immediate reactions from Israeli politicians. Ben Gavir himself attacked the move on his X account, writing, "You have no authority. There will be no coup." Communications Minister Shlomo Kari responded sharply. Judges can appoint or dismiss a minister in Israel. The prime minister's response should be, "It's none of your business. As prime minister of Israel, the sole authority is mine." Opposition of member of Knesset Gilad Kariv, the Democrats, in parentheses here, reacted positively to the court order, saying in a reformed and life loving state, Netanyahu would have personally dismissed a failed and incompetent minister who is responsible for the collapse of personal security in homes, on the streets, and on the roads. But with Netanyahu, cynical political considerations prevail over any national considerations. Now, see, is that a totally made up sentence there? I mean, what has Ben Gavir done to cause a collapse of personal security in homes and on the streets and on the roads? What?
Yeah.
Anyway, he went on to say the
They're
High
making it
Court
up.
judges did well when they decided to oblige Netanyahu to address Ben Gavir's ongoing violation of the law and complete trampling of the independence of the police and its statehood. You see? So here we go. It's just, oh man. It's the same thing like,
Yeah.
Trump is a Nazi and Trump is Hitler
Well,
uh
it basically
and
they're
he's
legislating from the bench.
unconstitutional. Yeah.
They have made legislating from the bench legal.
Mhm.
And this was what
Yep.
Netanyahu, this is what Bibi's intention was when he, before October 7th happened, and he was trying to get
Mhm.
equal checks and balances
Right.
among all the legislative, executive, and
Right.
judicial,
And they don't
and
have three.
they didn't want it.
They don't have legislative, executive, and judicial. They don't have that.
Right. But that's what he was
They
wanting. He
just
was wanting to
have
change over to that.
Yeah, they just have legislative and judicial. They don't have a third. They don't have that. So, their executive and legislative are kind of the
Right.
same.
But he wanted to create an executive
Uh-huh.
branch, and of course the judicial branch is like, hey, we're in control,
Yeah,
we're gonna keep it.
we're going to keep the control. Yes. So it's complicated. So that's a good summary there of, as much as we can understand it, those of us here outside of all of it. It's
Yeah.
But I thought that was pretty good. Uh, Commentary. He had something called Connect Q&A, Trump, Iran, and the Ezekiel War. Also mark your calendars for February 9th and 16th when Pastor Barry and he will once again be on the question and answers and talk about all of this. So since I'm using all of his stuff, I like to give him he's a good resource for me to bring some things to you. And of course, he has a Telegram channel. And then he has his Mid East and Beyond update also posted. Check him out, Amir Tsarfati on Telegram, and Google him. You'll find. But anyway, he's talking here about Iran barks but holds back its bite, and he has threats against America. Israel. Yesterday, there was even a threat against the Dubai airport. An angry porcupine facing off against a grizzly. The spiky rodent can easily get torn to shreds, so it's doing all it can to make sure it'll pay a heavy price if it chooses to attack. Every statement of the team is making is showing as another of its quills. One of the latest examples was when Abed Ramin Mousavi, chief staff of the armed forces in Iran, threatened, after the 12-day war, we changed our military doctrine from defensive to offensive by adopting a policy of asymmetric warfare and crushing response to enemies. In other words, you come near us with your enormous teeth and razor sharp claws, you can expect to feel the pain of our millions of little spikes anywhere and everywhere. From your Middle Eastern bases to your carrier groups in the Arabian Sea to your nation's capital to your small towns. The identification of bear changes when you get into Iran itself. There, the regime is the grizzly, and the protectors are trying to swim upstream. The protester, I'm sorry, and the protesters are salmon trying to swim upstream. Hundreds of thousands of young people and many older ones as well are risking everything to try to achieve a better life without oppressive Islamism hanging over their heads. All the while, the Basij and the police and the IRGC are mercilessly plucking the defenseless fish from the waters one by one and slaughtering them. Murdering of protesters is rare as a bear snatching up and swallowing it down. Instead, the young people arrested, thrown in prison, tortured, then executed. On Tuesday, a German Iranian journalist pointing low number of women's bodies that are showing up amongst the dead. He claims it is because the regime is using rape as a weapon against its people. To hide the evidence of this heinous tactic from the outside world, women's bodies are being burned.
Hmm.
So, will the United States and Iran sit down and talk, or will there be war? The answer to this question depends on who you ask and when you ask it. Just yesterday, the talks were declared on and off. Then he says a strobe light at a discotheque. Initially, Iran demanded that the talks with Oman, likely because Iran wants to expand trade with the Gulf nation. Then the Islamic regime narrowed down the discussion to a single subject. Ali Shamkhani, senior advisor to the supreme leader of Iran, said that any talks must be limited to the nuclear issue only. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio insisted that negotiations must include ballistic missiles, proxy militias, and the treatment of the protesters in a nuclear issue. Next thing you know, the talks were off and the countries were on the brink of war again. Then suddenly gone. What happened? In a stare down between Trump and Khomeini, it appears that Trump blinked. The president is in a very difficult situation. He has midterms coming up. And if he loses the House and the Senate, then he find himself as a lame duck in his last 2 years. One way to ensure the Republicans are obliterated in November's election is to enter into a conflict in which U.S. troops are killed. This goes back to the bear and the porcupine analogy. Undoubtedly, Trump would win a battle against Iran, but he could lose the war against the leftist ideology that is doing all it can to render him ineffective and destroy all the good that he's done for the country. But it's more than just troops being lost. The new American national strategy explains why a long and costly war in the Middle East is something the current U.S. administration cannot afford to pursue. Iran understands this well and is deliberately pressing the pressure point by promising an extended regional war. What Washington wants is quite enough to allow focus on larger priorities, Greenland from a defense standpoint, and the Indian Middle East European Economic Corridor, or IMEC, from an economic. All this means one thing: the Ayatollah regime is not going anywhere in the near future. He says, I am a fan of Donald Trump, the president. He's been the greatest friend Israel has ever had. But I believe that, like most Westerners, he doesn't fully understand the Middle East. As a result, he has been backed into a corner that will force him to abandon the protesters and leave the topics of ballistic missiles and proxy militias on the table. What that means for Israel is the responsibility for dealing with Iran will be left to us. We are the ones who have to decide whether to strike Israel's ballistic missile program. Should it be excluded, whatever deal the Trump administration may choose to make with the devil. As a teacher of prophecy, none of this surprises me. What breaks my heart is the fate of the brave Iranian people who believed that help was on the way and took to the streets, only to be met with the slaughter of more than 40,000 young and unarmed civilians. Iran is patient. It is willing to wait out Trump's term in the White House and pin its hopes on America's eventual decline. The question that remains is simple: will Israel soon move alone to strike again, or will it be pressured by the United States not to? So, the only booms that are taking place in Israel right now are our economy. The U.S. stock market has recently hit record highs, but the Israeli stock market has surpassed the U.S. increases by a factor of 3. Despite the unsure geopolitical situation, both Moody's and the S&P have upgraded credit rating to stable. Tech companies are also investing significantly in the country, including NVIDIA building a 160,000 square meter facility 5 minutes from my house, he says. This all fits the prophecy of Ezekiel 38 that sees Israel being a land of peace and safety, prime for just prior to the onset of the Ezekiel War. Now Amir's believing that all of this setup is for that Ezekiel 38 and 39 war is about just right around the corner here.
Could be.
And of course, we've talked about 2029, Apophis, the strike of the meteor,
right?
Possibly, all of these things culminating around this 2029, 2028, 2029, which would be at the end of Trump's he would be out of office at that time.
Right.
So could be because
It's
without the
possible.
power of Donald Trump in the White House in 2 years, you know, he these nations could rise up because we really, I mean, here we I keep looking around. We don't really see anybody's up and come along in the Republican Party to do the dynamic thing that he did to actually win. So we may end up after Trump with a Democratic president, and everything be overturned that he ever did.
Mm-hmm.
That's unfortunate. Terrorists remain active in Gaza, he says here. Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad continue to threaten IDF troops in Gaza. Earlier this week, the IDF eliminated 4 terrorists in Gaza who approached forces near the Yellow Line, then killed Ali Razaina, the Northern Gaza Brigade commander of the PIJ. Yesterday, an IDF soldier was severely wounded by sniper fire near the Yellow Line. In response, the IDF killed the 9 Hamas terrorists in Gaza City and Khan Yunis. It certainly seems that the healthiest option for the terrorists would be to just surrender. But that's not in their psyche. They're nuts,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
So anyone who thought that the Russians, he's going to talk about Russia is not giving up. The Russians were tiring of war against Ukraine and were going to look for a graceful way to bow out. You better think again. Tuesday saw the most significant attack by Russia against Ukraine this year. Targets were energy infrastructure, and the strikes were in Kiev. Oh, I'm not even going to begin to try to pronounce these names. There's one, two, three, four, five, six different besides Kiev. No, I don't know how to pronounce that. So, but anyway, and their surrounding areas. So they all of the targets in those places, in those cities. When it comes to international prestige, Russia is on an upswing. They even renewed an offer to Iran to hold on to the Islamic regime's enriched uranium if it would help negotiations. So Russia is going to take the enriched uranium.
Mm-hmm.
Said Kremlin's spokesperson Dmitry Peskov, Russia has been offering its services for quite a long time as a possible option that could lead to the removal of certain irritants for a number of countries. Again, Justin Trump gets out of the way, right?
Right. Right.
And he was referring to the uranium as the certain irritants and all. So Israel and Africa and Ezekiel. We've hit Iran and Russia, so we might as well pay a visit to Turkey to round out our Ezekiel war tour, he says. That's what we got, right? Turkey has been expanding its reach in Africa, particularly in Somalia. Somalia. In fact, Turkey's largest military base is located in Somalia, where they get all that money from the daycares,
Uh-huh.
right?
And don't provide any services.
Nope. And has just received a deployment of 3 American made Lockheed Martin F 16 Viper fighter jets. While Somalia is not known for its hospitality and social graces, it more than makes up for it with an abundance of minerals. Oh, minerals, huh? With Turkey's economic woes, making a deal with Somalia for a share of mineral wealth could be a huge boon. The problem is that a lot of the rare earths, including a whole bunch of lithium, is in the mines of the breakoff Republic of Somaliland. And who do you find hanging out in the capital city of Hargeisa with the Somalilanders? It's those pescos again.
Yep.
They were the first and only nation to recognize the Republic of Somaliland as an independent. As such, the Hargeisa government is more than ready to make a deal with Jerusalem for all those minerals,
Mm-hmm.
particularly the lithium that powers so many batteries and electric cars. Once again, fall into place of the motivational puzzle that leads Turkey, Iran, and Russia, along with Libya, Sudan, and others, to form an alliance to plunder and destroy the nation.
Mm-hmm.
So that answers some of Richard's questions. You know, he keeps talking about, hey, you've come to take a spoil.
They
Here's
have.
some of the spoil.
Yep.
It's being all gathered together.
Yep.
So, and oh, I forgot to talk about Richard. Richard is in all of this. Did we talk about
No, we
Richard?
did
Talk
not.
about Richard. Before I forget it here, Richard is still recovering from the MRSA problem, and he's very weak right now. He's been on very high powered um, antibiotics, intravenous antibiotics. He said he has till this Saturday. That's going to be complete. But now he's been referred. He's been so depleted of energy and they've checked his white blood cell count, and evidently that is highly messed up, and so been referred to a hematologist.
Oh no.
So they're concerned about that. He says, I don't know if they think I've got leukemia. I, I'm assuming that because of the nature of these drugs and what they do to the system, that's totally messed him up. So
Mm-hmm.
pray for Richard that
Yeah.
fortunately he's come through the MRSA. He was just that far from not making it. So and it's got him um, kind of wiped out right now. So pray for him that his strength returns. I have an archaeological article, but I have a little bit of time here. There was one thing, and this is of course the today that Bible and You Ministry produces this newspaper, and it's called Today's Front Page. And he says, number one in news and inspiration, the nation's Christian newspaper. You can buy an individual issue for $2.50, or you can contribute to the ministry, and I get them all the time.
Wow.
So they just keep sending them, and I appreciate it. So thank you to John Barella and Today the Bible and You, coming out of Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. So, but he's got a story here. Prophecy in Revelation 13 coming alive to be the framework for the mark of the beast.
Mm.
It says here that, let me see if I can read this. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced a national digital identity program called the Card. In an effort to combat illegal migration, the British government stated that it would mandate that all employees possess a digital identity. And of course, and he says here in Ezekiel 12:22 through 23, Son of man, what is that proverb that you have in the land of Israel, saying, the days are prolonged and every vision fails? Tell them, therefore, thus says the Lord God, I will make this proverb to cease, and they shall no more say, they shall no more use it as a proverb in Israel, but say unto them the effect of every vision. Here that the same was true about the people in Ezekiel's time as they are today. Skeptics complained about the delay in the fulfillment of the prophecies. God declares that the time will come to show that God's word will be accomplished in its due time and not be thwarted by human impatience or disbelief. With that time, we are witnessing things predicted thousands of years ago come to life before our eyes. And he says here, a digital ID scheme, also known as card or Brit card, in other words, make it one word or they make it two, for adult residents of the United Kingdom was announced by the Prime Minister Starmer on the 25th of September 2025. The Starmer government hopes it as a part of their attempts to tackle the rise in illegal migrant crossings in small boats across the English Channel, for it to be a mandatory requirement to prove the right to work. The proposals for digital ID have received opposition from Labour Member of Parliament, Labour MPs, let's just say Labour MPs, other political leaders, due to concerns around the possible infringement of civil liberties, with Big Brother Watch describing the plans as wholly un-British and creating a domestic mass surveillance infrastructure. The abandoned voluntary ID card scheme of former Prime Minister Tony Blair. Although he's part of the Board of Peace now, isn't he? A petition against mandatory digital ID cards has 2.8 million signatures as of October 4th of 2025. What just happened in the UK is in the Bible. November 3rd, 2025, while most of the world was focused on elections, conflicts, and economic news, something in the United Kingdom that stopped watchers dead in their tracks. The UK government made an announcement. You'll be shocked when you discover the 5 findings about this announcement. Discovery One, the announcement that changed everything. On November 2025, Home Secretary Yvette Cooper and Digital Minister Peter Kyle stand before the cameras and announce the Brit card. Let me read you the exact description from the government's press release because every word matters. Brit card is a free government issued digital identity intended to become mandatory for all UK citizens and legal residents within the next 18 to 24 months. BritCard will what's in the Bible, right? We need to know the genuine article because these are the flowery things that come along, the deception that comes along, right? Feature number one, biometric enrollment. To get a Brit card, you must undergo biometric enrollment. That means facial recognition scan and fingerprint scan. These are required, not optional. Required. You'll either go in person to a post office, these scans done, or you'll use a certified app that captures your facial biometric and fingerprints through your smartphone camera and screen. Your face, your fingerprints captured, stored, and linked permanently to your identity. Now, think about the biblical description we're going to examine in Discovery 2, the mark on the right hand or the forehead. Keep that in mind as we go through this. Feature number two, centralized base. All of this data, your biometrics, your personal information, your entire identity will be stored in what they're called the National Identity Register version 2 or NIR2. Now, this is significant because the UK actually tried to do this before 2006. They attempted to create a national ID card system with a central database. Really unpopular. Civil liberties groups protested and it was eventually scrapped in 2010. So why are they trying by now? Well, they're always using an excuse, right? To
Mm-hmm.
get the same thing done, right?
Yep.
The government says technology has improved, security is better, the threats are greater, and we need this for protection. But here is what is actually different this time. The infrastructure exists now. The digital systems are in place. The banking integration is ready. The surveillance technology has matured. And most importantly, they've learned how to sell it better.
Mm. Okay.
Feature number three, mandatory integration. This is where it gets really invasive. BritCard isn't just an ID card in your wallet, it's mandatory integration with every essential service in your life. Banking, you'll need a Brit card to open an account, get a mortgage, conduct large cash transactions. NHS and health records, your medical history, prescriptions, treatment records, all connected to Brit card. Travel, e-gates at airports, train stations, rail passes, all requiring Brit card verification.
Hmm.
Employment and benefits, you won't be able to work legally or receive government assistance without a Brit card. Online age verification, under Ofcom rules, assessing certain websites and services will require Brit card authentication. That every essential service, every part of normal life, all connected and all controlled through this single system.
Hmm.
Number four, the timeline. Now, here's where the government strategy becomes clear. They're not implementing this all at once, they're doing it in phases. Phase one in 2026, voluntary with incentives. They'll offer faster services, easier access, and convenient benefits for early adopters. We want to get people used to it. and make it seem normal. Phase 2, 2027 Q1 required for new bank accounts, mortgages, and large cash transactions. Now it's not voluntary anymore, but you can still function without it, just not as easily. Phase 3, 2028 mandate full. No Brit card equals no access to essential services. You cannot work. You cannot bank. You cannot travel. You cannot function in society. Keep that timeline in mind. 2026 to 2028, 3 years from voluntary to mandatory, from convenience to control, from optional to essential for
Hmm.
feature number 5, real-time tracking. And here's the feature they're not advertising heavily, but it's in the technical specifications. Location metadata will be logged when Brit card is used. Every time you tap in on the tube, every time you verify your identity, every time you access a government service, your location is recorded. Yours are tracked. Your patterns analyzed. They'll say it's for security to prevent fraud, to catch criminals, and there is some truth to that. The ability exists for total surveillance, for knowing where every person is at every moment. Imagine a system where your biological data is stored in a government database. Every financial transaction requires verification through the system, and non results in automatic exclusion from society. Does that sound anything like what you've read about in the Bible?
Hmm.
Before we get ahead of ourselves, let's go to the scripture. Discovery 2, the biblical prophecy, Revelation 13. Turn with me to Revelation chapter. Pay attention to every single detail, because what you're read isn't ancient history, it's current events. And he causes all things, both small and great, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666.
We knew that was coming, didn't we, folks?
Yep. This prophecy has been studied and debated for nearly 2,000 years, and suddenly, in November of 2025, it's not as speculative anymore. It's forced all people. This refers to the second beast, the false prophet who implements the control system on behalf of the Antichrist. Notice, God says causes or forces all people, not some people, volunteers. It is universal and mandatory. Great and small, rich and poor, free and bond, or slave. John is emphasizing that no one escapes this system. It doesn't matter if you're powerful or powerless. Everyone is subject to the same requirement, a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. Now we get to the specific implementation. The Greek word for mark is charagma, which can mean a stamp or an engraving or a brand.
Mm-hmm.
Right hand or the forehead are very specific practical applications for a system designed to control commerce and verify identity. What's critical is that it is describing something physically connected to your biological being, so that they could not buy or sell. Here's the purpose function: economic control, and can buy or sell without it. That means you can't purchase food, you can't pay rent, you can't receive a salary, you can't access your savings. It's a total economic exclusion. This isn't just inconvenient, this is survival level control. You can't buy food, you starve.
Right.
The name of the beast or the number of its name. The mark contains identifying information. Taking the mark is participating. It's in an economic system. It's declaring allegiance to the beast. That is why later in Revelation, those who take the mark face eternal judgment. It is a spiritual choice with eternal consequences. John tells us this calls for wisdom and spiritual discernment. For 2,000 years, every generation the technology of their time and thought it could be the mark, but the full picture didn't match until now. And he says, let's be very clear. I'm not saying Brit card is the mark of the beast. The actual mark will be implemented by the Antichrist during the tribulation period after the rapture of the church. But what we are saying is that card is the infrastructure. It's the framework. If you're going to the house, you start with the foundation and the wiring, and at the very end, you move in and live there.
Right.
That's what we're seeing. The system is being tested and implemented. When the Antichrist arrives, build this system from scratch,
Nope.
it will already exist. He'll just have to take control and require allegiance.
Yep.
Discovery 3, the undeniable parallels. Let's compare the biblical description to the announced on November 3rd. Mandatory for all people. Number 1 here.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible says it forces all. The BRIC card will be mandatory for all UK citizens by 2028, no exceptions. Number so without it, the Bible states clearly that the BRIT card reality is that there will be no access to employment, banking, or financial services without it. If you refuse it, you cannot get paid for work. And here's a detail that has prophecy watchers extremely concerned. Each BRIT card is linked to a unique 18-digit national number. It's called NIN2. I think it's NIN. It may be N1, N2, but I think it's NIN2. 18 digits. That's 6 plus 6 plus 6.
There you go.
Numerology can be taken too far, but this isn't hidden. The national identity number is literally 18. Furthermore, in October of 2025, the Bank of England confirmed the digital pound wallets will require BRIT card verification.
Mm-hmm.
The UK is developing a central bank digital currency, or a CBDC, programmable money that can be tracked and restricted remotely. We have a mandatory biometric digital ID and a digital currency that requires that ID to access it. This is the complete economic control system Revelation 13 describes. And it says here, discovery number 4, the deception pattern. Oh my, this goes on for a while here. This is the last page. The description pattern and peace and the description pattern and peace safety. There's another critical prophetic text in 1 Thessalonians 5:3. For when they shall safety, then sudden destruction comes upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. This phrase is key to understanding end times deception. Evil will not be announced as tyranny, but packaged as good. Slavery will be sold as freedom, and control will be marked as security. The marketing language for the BRIT card is safer banking, faster travel, fraud-proof identification, peace of mind in a digital world, peace and safety, exactly as God predicted. The strategy is the Trojan horse. Phase 1, make it voluntary and appealing to create social acceptance. Phase 2, create inconvenience for non-participants, increasing pressure. Phase 3, make it absolutely mandatory. By the time people realize what's happened, they're already trapped.
Mm-hmm.
In 2 Thessalonians 2, 9 through 12, it speaks of the coming of the son of perdition, lawless one, with lying signs and wonders that serve the lie, that this system is for your good. The technological marvels make people think it's progress, they serve the lie. And it says here, the China example and the beast. Something biblical just happened in China and the UK. China has already the framework of the beast system with its social credit system. In China today, your behavior determines your access to civilization. You are assigned a score. Do good things for the state, points are added. Criticize the government or associate with someone with a low score, and your points drop.
Wow. Sounds like China.
That is China. He's talking about China here.
Yeah.
The consequences are immediate. If your score low, you cannot buy airplane tickets, or you high-speed trains, you become a digital ghost.
There you go.
How is it possible to prevent someone from buying or selling globally? Just answered the question. You don't need guards at every store. You simply need to make a transaction impossible to complete. If your score is low, your bank account can be frozen and your digital wallet. Furthermore, the system corrupts human relationships, incentivizing people to spy on their neighbors to earn points, as they do in many parts of Great Britain. Right? That's happening now. People getting arrested for what they speak in Great Britain.
Yeah.
China also has a massive surveillance infrastructure, over 200 million cameras connected to an AI that identifies, analyzes their gait, and even reads their emotions.
Yeah.
Revelation 13:15 describes an image of the beast that speaks and causes those who do not worship it to be killed. For centuries, this was a mystery, but artificial intelligence provides the answer. And AI can judge and act without rest or mercy.
Sure.
China's digital yuan is programmable money, the state money to expire if not spent or to be used only on approved goods. goods.
Right.
It's connected to social credit. If the system determines you're not compliant, your money is frozen instantly. This technology is being exported to over 80 nations.
Mm-hmm.
They're buying it.
Yeah.
The infrastructure is going global as God declares. This is why it is happening. For to do whatsoever thy hand and thy before to be done. Acts 4:28. God declares the end from the beginning. Praise him. The perfect prophetic storm. China, the enforcement mechanism, the sword, the punishment. But the UK just built the key, the universal identity. When you combine China's enforcement with the UK's identity, you have the Revelation 13 control system. Imagine a global system using the UK's biometric identity to determine who you are. China's surveillance to monitor what you China's programmable currency to control what you buy.
There you go.
That is not a future scenario. Those are two operational systems that already exist. As Ezekiel, the proverb has ceased, and the effect of every vision is before our eyes, unless the eyes of some are blinded. Many seem to be confused because they do not understand Revelation, but the infrastructure is already complete. The only thing missing is the person who's going to use it.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing the time that now it is high time to awake out of sleep, for now our salvation is nearer than when we first believed. Romans 13:11. So there you go.
Yeah.
Time story you really want to contemplate, really,
Nope.
but
It's
that's
that could create some monsters in your closet, couldn't
right.
it?
It really could.
Wow.
Oh well, there it is. We are
You
down
know,
too.
it's all
The
all
archaeological
that
story.
food that you bought a few years back, ladies and gentlemen. You thought it wasn't going to come in handy, you know?
I hope it's still good.
Yeah. So
So there you go. It's all coming into place. It's all coming into view, isn't it?
sure is.
Okay, so now this is from the Post. Archaeologists discover a 5,000-year-old evidence of ancient Egyptian conquest in the Sinai Desert.
Hmm.
And it's a 5-year-old rock carvings in Wadi Camilla a dry valley in the southwestern Sinai, depicting ancient Egypt's of the region. The University of Braun shared in a Tuesday statement the carvings which show a large man with his arms raised and another figure kneeling with an arrow piercing their chest was first found by Egyptian archaeologist Mustafa Nur el-Din during an exploratory trip to the area. The carvings were later interpreted by Egyptologist Professor Dr. Ludwig Morenz. According to Morenz, the fear-inducing Egyptian standing in front of a kneeling injured Sinite, or however they want to say that, Sinite, depicts the ancient Egyptians' conquest and subjugation of the locals. While several ancient Egyptian rock carvings have been discovered in other valleys in the Sinai, finding 5,000-year-old evidence of an ancient present in the Wadi Camilla area suggests Egyptians had a kind of colonial network. So the southwest Sinai is the region in which we can't, or in the region in which we find economically motivated colonization using images and inscriptions, some of which are over 5,000 years old. Morenz explained, noting that this Wadi Camilla carving is one of the oldest known scenes of killing with an accompanying inscription. A carving of a boat was also found along the killing scene. According to a study on the carving published by Eldin and Moritz in the 2025 edition of the journal Blat Abraham, there used to be the carving of a name near the carving of the boat, possibly of Pharaoh, which was deliberately erased, though who removed the name, when it was removed, and why remains unclear. An early inscription referring to the Egyptian deity Min, spelled Min, as the divine protector of the Egyptians on the Nile River was also found nearby, the study claimed. Eldin later discovered a second depiction of the deity Min in Wadi Kamila. Both Eldin and Moretz believe that even more rock drawings could be found in the area, noting that research has just begun and we're planning for a first bigger campaign. So just dealing with this and of what they're finding out there in the Sinai Desert. Interesting. And that's it. I have
Wow.
come down to the end of all of my stories for this week.
Well, Bonnie has chimed in on our chat here
Yes?
and says that what Richard needs is dandelion.
Ah, dandelion, huh?
Tincture is by needs dandelion and then tincture.
Okay, a dandelion tincture. Tincture. I'll
And
have to
then
call him and tell him.
and then we got to talking about all the food that people got a few back, and she just chimed in a couple of minutes ago and said Jim Baker is back. So
Hmm. How's he doing, I wonder? Well, that's good news.
yeah.
Yep. So I still got some around. So I haven't checked it in a long, long time there. And so we shall see. But things are really certainly coming together. We've heard from Amir Tsarfati and what believes are signs, strong happening that is talked about in Ezekiel 38 and 39.
Mm-hmm.
With that article, we see that the coming together of what's predicted in the book of Revelation. So we know, and like I said at the beginning of the show, you need to read your Bible.
Yep.
You need to read it and become, if you are a believer in Yeshua, you need to find out what, I mean, you just need to read the Bible. You don't need to be taking words from somebody else because the counterfeit is out there.
Oh, and
So,
Bonnie says that Jim Baker is back full time on PTL. Praise the Lord.
okay.
So there you go.
Well, I'll have to look and see if it's available through YouTube somehow. I'll have to see. I'll have to check it out and see. But
Yeah.
that's yeah, he's I know he's been through quite a health problems, so
Yep.
um the attacks have come. The attacks were even happening to our but we hope we have a friend Chad and so he helped us get through that and get it back on Rumble, YouTube and Twitch.
Yes.
And if you're enjoying this program and enjoying it coming your way and you want to help us out, Jim will tell you how you can write and do that. And that's right now, that's pretty much something directly to us. That's really the only way it can be done.
Right. You can send your donation through the Truth in Life Today, 1301 Enterprise Way, Suite 63, Marion, Illinois, 62959. That's Truth in Life Today. PO or 1301. Almost gave the address. 1301 Enterprise Way, Suite 63, Marion, Illinois, 62959.
Yes.
And in your envelope, stick a little note and tell us how you'd like your donation to be used. Now, how long has it been since we had a PO box? It's
Been a
been at
long time.
least
Yes.
5, 6, 7
Yeah.
years.
We don't know. Rabbi and Martha had the P.O. box. We don't have the P.O. box anymore.
Wow.
Nope. It's just right here. 1301 Enterprise Way, Suite C3, right here in Marion, Illinois.
That was a blast from
62959.
the past.
Yes, it
Wow.
was. Yep, no box.
Nope.
So we I guess we didn't get the Hebrew class unfortunately on last night because of technical difficulties, but we hope we've got this straightened out. Let's hope, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we will be back again tomorrow evening at for the Shabbat service that begins again Central Time at 7 p.m. I don't know where everybody's watching from, but we come to you live with this program every Thursday. And then, of course, like I said, Shabbat service on Friday evenings, 7 p.m. Central Time. The Hebrew class, the Hebrew teaching, we're supposed to start at 6:30. So it's been a little difficult to reach that,
Right.
but we hope that we can get on some sort of schedule here. So, and hope you enjoyed the program this evening. Pray for us. We'll pray for you. We just all have to pray for each other. Pray for the 10 yards around us to take authority, and keep your eyes and ears open and seeing what's going on around you, and follow the word. and get familiar with that word so you'll know what's the fake from the genuine, like
Yep.
I was saying. So until we see you again next week, shalom, everyone.
Shalom.